What's going on, everybody? We are back for another episode of an Algorand ecosystem update. What's good?
Yo, what's good?
Nothing much. Enjoying this great Earth Day Eve. Getting
Earth Day
ready for some
Eve.
craziness to
Great
happen
Eve.
tonight, hopefully.
Yeah, how are you guys celebrating this fine Earth Day Eve?
I'll probably be at the pool, honestly.
Yeah, I'm still celebrating 420.
Oh, that's why you woke up late.
Yes.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, I'm a little jealous, David. It's the next 10 days I just checked. We have like a high of like 55, and that's probably gonna last like a couple hours each day. You know what I mean? And some days colder than that. So I can't wait for it to be warm around here again.
Yeah, me and my wife and some friends were at a little island or a little natural preserve yesterday for like 5 hours, just chilling on the beach.
Nice.
Like four manatees swam right by us, a dolphin, some rays. It's a lot of fun down here in Florida. The weather's nice all year round. I mean, it's almost getting to the point where it's gonna start getting really hot and humid. But right now, it's like I feel like this perfect spot where it's hot, but it's actually not super humid yet until the rainy season comes, and then it's like you don't go outside from the times of like 11:30 to like 7 o'clock. Not really. It's not that bad, but some people here think it's that bad. I don't care because I'm from Kentucky, and Kentucky it's humid as hell as well. So the humidity doesn't bother me as much.
Yeah, so what's up? What's up, everybody in the comments? I'm seeing a couple comments roll through right now. Anybody else that has anything that you want us to discuss, any questions, hit us up in those comments. But I do want to touch on this right here. IE is saying Anote Music has an app, a marketplace, and is already sending out royalty payments and is mirroring transactions on the Algo mainnet, which is 100% true. And for those that haven't checked it out yet, I just had an interview with the CEO either yesterday or the day before. It was a fantastic discussion. I even did a video on Anote Music probably like 9 months ago when my channel was still super small and the quality was not that great, but it's a project that I've been following for quite some time. So it was great to have that conversation the other day. So definitely go check that out if you haven't.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit more. So what's the comparison to Opulous? What's some of the pros and cons?
The comparison is they have had their platform out live for 2 years. They started on Ethereum and have shifted over to Algorand. They've been paying out royalties and selling catalogs of music for about 2 years now successfully. They're based in Europe. They're co-financed in part by the government of Luxembourg, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's nice.
They don't have a token yet. They are coming out with a token, I believe, next quarter. But that's 2 years of successful catalogs sold and royalty payments made before they launched a token. So it is a competitor to Opulous, but it's actually currently doing as it says, and it's not lagging behind its roadmap.
What's the utility expected for their token? Like we know what Opulous is hoping to do. What's the Anotes? What's their utility for the token?
We touched on that a little bit, and from what I understand, it's mostly just going to be a governance token of the platform. Voting
like
on
blockchain?
voting on like fees and revenue sharing models and like all sorts of things like that. I don't think it's going to be like the primary currency of the platform. I do think a lot of these artists and people like transacting in something more stable so they can understand what their income stream is going to be.
Yeah.
But you can purchase in cryptocurrencies. They allow various different cryptocurrencies to purchase with and cash out with.
Yeah, that is interesting, especially to see that there. I mean, obviously, there's many other projects other than just Opulous as well on other chains that are building these, NFTs. Obviously, Opulous touts that it's the only one trying to do the security-backed NFT, which maybe that is reason for it taking longer than others to actually get these projects out. But I do agree it'll be nice once people who've invested in it can actually see those returns, see the royalties that they are earning. I think that will give at least confidence behind, what the project's looking to do, that there is something coming.
Yeah, the most popular platform that I know of that's trying to do the similar thing that Opulus and Anote Music are trying to do is Royal, and
There you
I believe that was started by a big EDM artist, and I don't believe that they are doing it the perfectly regulated way, which is the part of the supposed issue with Opulus and launching in the United States. I do also probably think that's why A-Note Music is primarily a European marketplace,
Right.
although they can have American investors. But I do think they're based out of Europe for a reason.
Yep.
Makes
I
sense.
mean, that's also why you see so many projects, I feel like, based out of the US, just because
Yeah,
there's just so much strict regulation in the US for cryptocurrencies and stuff like that. So let's talk about your all's thoughts on these, Times Square, Algorand taking the billboards dark. Also, with obviously, I would hope some marketing beforehand that would prelude that. But what are your all's thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean we've got Mel asking the question in the chats: is today the day Algorand billboards go on or off? I mean, depending on how you want to ask the question. Yes, that is today at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I
The
believe
metaverse, I believe, is tonight as well, or
is it?
this
I
morning.
thought that was tomorrow. I thought that was for Earth Day.
Really early in the morning, I think.
At
Oh,
1
okay,
a.m.
okay,
Well, for me, it's like 1 a.m. or
Yeah,
oh,
it's
something.
like
okay, okay.
4 a.m. us.
Okay. Yeah, I believe there'll be plenty of people from Algorand there. Algofam, there's going to be a couple people. I believe Kelly from the marketing is going to be there as well. So
You going?
hopefully, yeah, I am going to go. I'm actually going to leave probably a little bit after this so I can get some food and stuff beforehand.
How far away are you from New York?
It's like a 2.5 hour drive, depending on if I hit traffic.
That's not bad at all.
Yeah, it's not bad. I'll probably drive halfway, get some dinner, and make the other half.
So what was your all's thoughts? Like, obviously, just on the idea of what Algorand's hoping to do there with just raising awareness for the blockchain, and then obviously some of the reactions. I saw some from I believe it was either CoinDesk or Cointelegraph, one of the two, where they had like a panel of people
CoinDesk.
discussing it, and the guy who moderated it or brought up the question seemed kind of neutral at first, and then immediately you had two people kind of shrugging it off, laughing it off, saying Algorand's just trying to stay relevant. What's your all's thoughts?
First of all, I think that's hella funny because I did watch the clip. He taking shots, and my first thought is watching them. And I watch his show a lot. They're Ethereum, Bitcoin people.
Oh
If
yeah.
you really watch them talk about it, they almost don't understand it. Like,
Well, I will
so,
say this: if you actually go research the guy who made the initial comment, he actually owns a mining company.
yeah,
Like,
I
I
did
don't know
research it.
exactly the extent of how big it is or any of that, but like, obviously he's against proof of stake immediately. Then, if he's a miner and he probably it's the same thing I've seen so much with Bitcoin and with Ethereum people who are just like, just I would say like Algorand maxis who are in this bubble of our idea is better than yours and whatnot. But like, you look at Ethereum and they make so much money off of the validators make so much money off of the fees, right? That the transactions cost. So obviously you're going to be behind Ethereum taking over because the higher fees get, the more money you make as a validator. And I feel like where Algorand tries to differentiate itself from that is anyone should be able to be a validator of the system. As long as they're plugged into the network, they should be able to participate in consensus. Ethereum is not that way. You have to have a certain amount of Ethereum, which I believe is 32. I always want to say 32 or 42, but I think it's 32 ETH. And if you don't have that yourself, which right now the cost, that's a ridiculous amount of money, you have to then pool your ETH with other people and hope that the major portion of that pool is honest and going to do well on your behalf, or else you could get shut off and lose your participation there. So right there, right off the start, centralized is all that screams. It doesn't scream decentralized. It doesn't scream what blockchain is supposed to be. Then you look at Bitcoin. I mean, I love Bitcoin. I love the idea behind it, but it's still centralized in a way of now the actual consensus or computing it takes to solve a block can be so extensive, and you have these big businesses and big companies that are renting out warehouses to fill these supercomputers in, that it's also not eligible for anyone anywhere just to start mining Bitcoin like it was probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. And so that's where I find it funny when I hear people from different, obviously they have big influence. They're either in Ethereum, they're in Bitcoin, they're in Matic or Polygon or Cardano or who knows what, but they talk bad about Algorand just because it's maybe overlooked. But I feel like it's overlooked for all the wrong reasons. Like, whereas the core foundations of like what a blockchain is supposed to be, it solves.
It seems like everything is overlooked if you want to compare from price action only. Us over here at Algorand, we're talking about the real world use case in the tech. So it is a difference of like Algorand does not have a moonshot and it hasn't. So that's why it's not a conversation. That's how I'm seeing it overall.
Yeah, I do agree for the most part that A lot of the bias in the broader community really just comes down to the price action, and people are turned off. A lot of it comes down to the fact that there were probably a lot of people in the ecosystem in the broader crypto community that purchased Algo at the very beginning when it was like $3 and fell down just because they're like, yo, I mean, there's probably some merit to this. But people get burned on price action and then never look back. Really, that's what it comes down to. Once people leave their bags, sometimes a lot of people are will never return to them. So.
Yeah, and,
Yeah,
and,
and
and
I
that
get
part
that.
makes sense.
I can only imagine the people who woke up to Netflix down another 30%, probably never going to touch
Oh
Netflix
my
stock,
God.
maybe.
That was crazy. Hey, so Bitcoin, I seen it a post. I think I retweeted, or JT, I seen you posted it. But Bitcoin is outperforming Netflix and all of these stocks
Yep.
that are
Yep.
dropping.
Year to date.
That's
Yeah.
Yep.
year to date. There we go, and that's a great thing for the whole crypto market because it shows you that the whole economy is wrecked right now, and the volatility is not only on crypto; it is the market as a whole that has the volatility.
Yeah,
So it's like
sometimes we
that's
all
crazy.
have tunnel vision with whatever we're
Yeah.
holding, and we just blame it. Oh, this particular stock or crypto must suck. But like, there's often, I mean, sometimes it is the case that whatever you're holding could suck, but there's often a lot more going on than just the fact that what you're holding may or may not be bad. I mean, a lot of people come to find out that once they decide to get rid of that stock, like a week or two later, that's when it finally pumps. So.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
think
will say
Netflix will
it has
recover
been interesting
based
the past couple months to see like all the big tech that you've seen out there, and a lot of the companies that after 2020 were doing really well. It's not like they all are just kind of crashing at once. It's like they each crash like a month after the other, but they have a substantial crash, and that's been pretty interesting for me to see. And you've also seen some posts come out showing that leading up to those crashes, there were some insider trades that people were getting out. I don't know, obviously maybe knowing that obviously there's always the thought of insider trading information and what people know might come
Yeah,
down
of
the road,
course.
but that always makes me wonder about overall market crash. Are we, instead of seeing like something like an '08 type financial crash where everything just got wrecked at the same time, is this going to be more or less like a slow methodic just bleed out of certain sectors, just continuing to crash, and maybe the housing market is going to come next and things like that?
Oh, I think the housing market's going to come down. I don't think it's going to crash, but it's going to come down, especially with mortgage rates going up. Um, but that being said, to your point about stocks, I mean Netflix in particular, they're a totally different beast. I mean Netflix was the first company of its kind to have its earnings report, so they were the first company to announce like, oh, we're not doing so well this quarter, and there are going to be other companies to follow as well. I mean this whole week, the next like 3 or 4 weeks are it's earnings season, so I
Yep.
think you'll see a lot of that happening. I mean, maybe not that significant degree, but if you look at the Netflix chart, it was pretty overextended anyway.
Also, like if you look at the fundamentals, like their debt, it's like they can't keep trying to produce this content. And if you just using the site, it does piss me off as a user that now I'm paying like $16 a month, and The Office and a lot of shows that people were really loving are not on Netflix. And then it's kind of like with how tokens and stocks, you get the downtrend happening. Now I want to also cancel my subscription in solidarity with everybody else canceling. You know what I'm saying? And go and fully go Disney Plus and HBO, which are cheaper and they have, relatively the same type of content.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely happening to tech right now. It's like all their weaknesses are being exposed, and it's going good for Bitcoin because Bitcoin is still strong.
Okay, so
Yeah.
here's a good question. We got one in the comments, and it's only because just what I've done today. I kind of want to touch on. It says, if Algorand
Oh,
doesn't incentivize node operators, doesn't that mean it's centralized? So I literally went through this morning. I mean, this question kind of just lines up with some of the notes I was taking because I was trying to figure out some stuff. I looked at node operators for each of the major exchange that major exchanges, major cryptos that kind of we talk about on this channel and everybody pretty much knows. Algorand at the moment has 2,135 nodes running. Now, I believe, obviously, there's two different types of nodes: relay nodes and participation nodes that have like the specific keys and all that stuff. I'm guessing this is just the relay nodes, but I don't know that specifically. Solana has just under 1,500. Avalanche has just over 1,600, and Cardano has just under 3,000 and that was just going to each of their developer tools websites and getting the metrics off of their site. So, that's the extent of where I got that. Obviously, Ethereum, it said, had 275,000. validators.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's people, like if that counts, if that means like there's 275,000 people that have at least 32 ETH, or like I don't really know how they get that
I
number,
think
but
that's probably still counting the proof of work model, to be honest, because they haven't moved over.
yeah, the proof.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
So obviously looking at that, and this is one of the things I've kind of wondered, and I've even asked questions to you guys, is that's the reason why I feel like so many people are still so invested in Ethereum and so invested in Bitcoin and so invested in the consensus mechanisms that pay you those big rewards for pretty much having the larger stake. And if
Yeah.
you look at Algorand, the whole idea is that with the random ability to choose who's going to be verifying the next block, it could be someone with 5 algo, it could be someone with 500,000 algo, and that's the whole idea. And then there's no reward for running those nodes. There's no reward for, I guess, helping to decentralize the network. And I actually spent this morning setting up a node. So I have a relay node going at the current moment. My node, well, I got to catch up, but I'm on, let's see.
How long did it take you to set up?
I'm on block 20 million something. So I don't know exactly how many blocks the full thing is at yet. It took me about an hour, hour and a half. I had to actually probably like 2 hours because I had to do some updates to my to Windows, and it's kind of confusing as well because I guess it's easier if you have a Mac or if you have Linux or Linux. But I had Microsoft, so I actually had to go download something to actually be able to run Linux on. So that also added a couple extra steps. But I did see that if you have Microsoft, you might be able to use RAN Labs. I don't know if they have their own way to set up a node, but it is interesting knowing that I have a node going. But other than just obviously letting my computer run and keeping it going, I don't know other, and obviously
Basically, you're saying there's no reason for you to do this.
Well, see, that's where I disagree, because if you really believe in Algorand, right, and you believe in what it is trying to do, which is to decentralize the financial world, right, to make it to where anyone and everywhere, if you have access to the internet, you have access to financial services,
Yep.
and it doesn't matter, what status you are and how much money you have. Just like anyone can get a wallet, and if you have internet, obviously, open up, create an Algorand wallet, pair a wallet, fund it, and then you could plug into Algofy and start earning some good yield. Whereas in most countries or most places around the world, you would never see that kind of yield. So going back to my point, if you really believe in Algorand and what it's doing, then yes, the incentive to operating a node and helping to decentralize the consensus is because you believe in that, not because you're going to get rewarded with money. Because I believe that if the moment you put those big rewards on running a node, it becomes centralized, because then the people with the most money can go buy up the most stake, and then they have the most access of the network. Key in point, Solana, the whales of that network own 50%.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
if,
it's a
at
double
any
it's a
time,
double-edged sword.
if they want to knock the network down because they don't like a transaction or they don't want to do something, it's their decision.
I hear
Yeah.
you on the not about getting rewarded. I understand, but in terms of when you think about the Ethereum people, it's like, why would they leave to go do something like that? Especially, well, maybe if they don't have a stake in it or care to use Algorand
Well,
platforms
they
at the
won't.
moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's
So
the
it's
whole
like,
idea, and that's the reason why they won't leave, is because I've seen so many pumpers of Ethereum, and I've talked to them about Algorand, and I've talked to people who I know are validators. They are never going to leave being a validator on Ethereum when these gas fees are so expensive and they're raking in the money. But like literally, I feel like I wasn't there at the start to hear Vitalik Buterin speak about what his goal and what his plan was for Ethereum, but I don't feel like it was so that we could leave centralized banks to create centralized blockchains to still prey on people who don't know and things like that.
JP Morgan and them is like hella behind Ethereum and they support it. So like that's always a big part I see, is like what bank is supporting which blockchain matters a lot in terms of what is going to be promoted in the public.
Although we also have a very high up person that was at J.P. Morgan as the head of the foundation. So, but I'll build on all those points. I do think that we need to somehow incentivize more node operators. But I also do agree that if you start pumping rewards out for that, you could have a huge increase in node operators, but it could just be two people running like 6,000 nodes because they're raking in all the money. So it could lead to centralization. So there is that double-edged concern where it's like, how do you walk that tightrope of incentivizing more people to run nodes without creating a more centralized structure? And I'm talking to Paul Regal next week, the CTO of Algorand, and I'm going to ask that exact question because I think it's an important question that I really don't have a solid answer for, because we do need more decentralization, more node operators, more security of the network, but we also want to be sure we don't walk ourselves into something where we're centralizing it, because it's the opposite of what we're trying to do. And to build onto your point about Ethereum and all that, like, it's a totally valid point, but incentivizing node operators shouldn't be something that we're doing to bring people over from other networks. It should just be what we're doing to decentralize the network and secure it. It shouldn't be like a gimmick to get money to flow over here. You know what I mean? It should just be done for the right reasons. But it is a tightrope to walk. So we'll see.
Yeah, and when you talk to the CTO, got to talk about these ghost chains or these like co-chains.
Co-chains.
Yeah, and I would suggest that look at some of the stuff because your board was talking about, and bring some of those things up. He always got good info, and
yeah, certainly. I mean, he's done a couple interviews too. I mean, I'm trying to watch them all. He's got one from like 2 years ago, and Silvio's on it as well. They talk about code chains. So I'm going to try to be well prepared for it, but I do think some solid answers on one thing I'm actually really curious about is how the main chain knows that assets exist on these code chains and vice versa, because once they're brought to the main chain, they're able to transact. But like, how do they know they exist? Which is a very interesting concept. But yeah, I would go for it.
Thinking crypto, he actually had an interview with Paul Regal like a couple weeks ago. Like, well, I think it was the end of March, so like maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. So maybe go check out that as well, just so you kind of see some of the questions that guy asked him. And then, did I say his name wrong or something?
No. So I was laughing at the comment. They're hella
Yeah.
funny. Ending racism with these streams: a black guy, white guy, and a Mexican. Davis Mexican.
Probably me. I look like a Mexican when I was like in middle school. I'm not even gonna lie. People literally thought I was.
Someone else I know called you a Puerto Rican too.
Hey, maybe it's just. Well, I will say I do live in Florida, so maybe.
Yeah, you're just getting that tan, dude.
Good tan I got going on.
Sorry, JT.
David was
Oh man, no, it's good. It's good.
Does my NFT make me look that way too? I might have to hit up one.
Like a Puerto Rican or Dominican or some
Hilarious.
Okay.
But no, but in all seriousness, even going back to, kind of like the whole node situation, that's one of the things I've been studying it all this morning is like decentralization. Like, I've watched like 3 interviews of Silvio Macaulay in different times. Like, one was 2 years ago, one was a year ago, one was like 3 months ago. And each of them, he talks about how Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin says the trilemma. You can't have all 3: scalability, decentralization, and security all in the same. One of them you have to sacrifice, and he said that they ended up sacrificing decentralization.
They did scalability.
Well, I mean,
that's what the sacrifice truly was.
Yeah, I guess that's true, and because they do source out a lot of that to layer 2s like Polygon and stuff like that help boost that. But I still think it's also they sacrifice decentralization because of putting that stipulation into becoming a validator of the network and having to have.
Another question is also about the validators. We're like the charts with like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is still the most decentralized in terms of holdings. And Algorand right now still isn't. Cardano, I believe, still isn't. And neither is Solana, if I'm correct. But I know
you're talking about just the holders of the token themselves, right?
So
okay,
that's one part of it. It's like the money is not concentrated with Bitcoin, and it's still, and you can, since it's open source, like we talked about earlier, you can, if you can get your hands on a miner, you can still mine. It's not locked up. You don't have to, so Bitcoin is still able to tap in with that open source. Ethereum is what you said. Yes, you need 100K to actually participate, and that's not true with Bitcoin.
Yeah, and to your point about Ethereum, they actually they kind of switched it around, because they sacrificed scalability, and they had their decentralization and what have you. But when now that they're switching to ETH 2.0, they're kind of switching that. So they want scalability, but they're
Yeah,
sacrificing the decentralization now. So they kind
yeah.
of, they're just switching around what they're sacrificing. They're really still not solving the trilemma.
And it's like if they do the merge, if it all happens. So like that's
And
why
they,
what
yeah,
Silvio's point is, it's like you true from that last interview, I think it was CoinDesk or whatever, but like you can't have a healthcare infrastructure on one of these blockchains, period. It has to be up and running. That's why I'm still like more power to Algorand in the future, because it's the only one still that makes sense. Again, we talked about this before. I use other blockchains. Sometimes it freezes when there's a launch. I can't get my stuff to go through. And you can't
yeah.
have that situation happening with governments.
Yeah, and going back to IE's point here, that he's making some good points. Running nodes isn't free, which
Facts.
is true. I mean, but in current design, it is extremely cheap. It is like
especially for Algorand.
it's pretty negligible for Algorand. However, there is a caveat to that, and that is when we do those full upgrades and eventually make it to 46K TPS, as they say we will, that will require more energy on the nodes, and it will be interesting I'm not entirely sure they'll be able to run them on those Raspberry Pis that you can currently run the network on now. So that is actually something I'm also going to ask Paul Regal, because certainly very interesting questions, if not important for sure.
So let me
At
ask
the
you this.
very, I'll say
Go
just
ahead.
real quick, at the very beginning, Algorand, set up with different university partners and all that to do the
Hmm.
decentralization. And I'm pretty sure they're on most of the continents in the world right now, other than I think Antarctica, from my research, all the nodes.
Somebody down there got a relay node
That's
holding the
Yeah.
interesting.
network down.
Yeah, so it's like if so when I think about the decentralization, like what happened with Bitcoin in China, one country could still say we're not going to do Algorand, but Algorand will still survive, and that's what it's still beautiful. Though it's only 2,000 nodes, but they're spread out pretty
Yep.
fairly.
Yeah, and
So
and the numbers you were giving out before, although it's not comparable to Ethereum yet, I will be really curious to see how that does happen when they switch, because the cost to be a validator. But that being said, it does seem like we're ahead of a lot of the other smart
Yep.
contract platforms that launched around the same time as Algorand, which is certainly a good pace. But let's answer a couple more of these questions real quick. We've got Oyster Pack tuning in, asking
Yo,
us, have we
Oyster.
seen yeah, have we seen the Fleet Elite NFT launch on Algogems? And I believe these are the NFTs for AlgoDAO, in which say you bought an NFT for like $500, you would eventually be airdropped $500 worth of the ADAO token when the token launch happens. So it's kind of like a weird pre-sale way to get into the token, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong if you're still in the chats. Other than that, I really haven't put as much time into it as I really should have. I've just been so busy this month with everything going on that I have been slacking on my AlgoDAO information. I know they're about to launch their token like any day now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have him on my show next Friday. We had to reschedule. So yeah, make sure that everyone who's tapping in send me some questions, and then we're gonna get those answered.
like I said, did any of us get into the cosmic? What is it called? Cosmic
Cosmic
COA.
Champs. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever their Cosmic Champs token is, I'm
I
not
did.
sure.
I
But
did
that was
not,
good.
but I do know that their video I did with them a few days ago is dropping today at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard. So make sure y'all tap in. But as of new token launches, no, I'm not hopping in anything new right now. I've been burnt.
Yeah, how do you feel about the project in general?
Um,
What was your impression after talking to them?
I'll say this because I've been Alchemon fanboying basically. It's another. So for me, I like projects that, yes, this is a fun one. It's only fun to me, but when I compare it to projects like Wayru, it has a real world utility. So for fun, I would say, yeah, Cosmic Champs is probably going to be cool, but I'm not too into just fun stuff. And I already kind of like Alchemon's the fun one that I like, and so it's just similar to me in terms of it's just fun. So I'm no knock to it, but in terms what I did like, they say that you can play their game when it drops without having a wallet enabled. So they're trying to do a mass adoption play as well. So that's one thing I do like about
Yeah, I mean, it looks like so far it's been a successful launch. I mean, it's up 104% in the last 24 hours. I mean, I wouldn't be chasing it just because, I mean, as
Look
you
at the
said,
first candle though. That means
yeah,
that's just liquidity, you know.
Yeah, I mean, this was the hype launch too, but in my opinion, it's got 57,000 fully diluted market cap. I mean, 57 million, not thousand, sorry, excuse me. And no product out yet. I do
I used,
think,
yeah.
yeah,
No
it totally
product. That's
could.
the point. I'm not
It
touching any games unless I actually can play it, and that's what
100%.
the
And it
comment said.
totally could be super successful. I mean, if you're gonna jump in, definitely try to use a small percentage of your portfolio, of course.
Yeah.
But from my
Well, I just
perspective, I'm not jumping in, but I do think that I will check out that conversation you had with them.
yeah. It was a good one, but like I said, it's a game and it needs to be out, and it's not, so I have to wait.
Oyster Pack is saying that my interpretation is correct, which is good. I should definitely look into it a little bit more, though.
Yep.
All right, all right. What's next on the agenda, guys? What are you guys seeing out there?
Well, we were talking about off of camera. I was using PackFi because I'm about to trying to get ready to do some tutorials, show some family members about how to bank themselves. But I have a beef with it right now because I'm used to using Algofam where I supply or stake and then my rewards immediately start to accrue. And PackFi, it's been a day and a half, and I signed up after a epoch or whatever, so I
Yeah,
missed the clock. Now I'm waiting a day and a half without any rewards. So I don't like that part. And I'm in the same situation with Tiny Man right now too in the pools.
yeah, yeah. I get that. As we said too, I mean, I spoke on it, and I don't necessarily mind. Because those rewards are accruing. So it's not like you're not getting them and they just haven't hit
Yes.
your wallet yet. Unless you leave before the epoch or period, then you might not get that day's rewards. But as we said too, like I don't really mind too much because if I get one transaction a day or in Tiny Man's case, one transaction a week in the pool that I'm in, I'm okay with that. Kind of it's like a lump sum that week and way less transactions to take count of if you're trying to do your taxes the right way.
Yeah. And I do understand why like the Tiny Man thing, why they're doing it. They want to make sure people are locking in liquidity without actually locking the liquidity.
Yeah, yeah, I get it because it incentivizes people to actually like be in there more than just like a couple minutes to milk those
Mhm.
rewards that might be
Yeah.
there that second.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I used to do on Yieldly.
Yeah, yeah, you just get in as soon as it launches and get out as soon as it dries up a little bit.
Yeah,
What do you guys
basically.
think about Yieldly right now with the obviously the nerd token thing? That was I was watching the
Yeah.
APY with some craziness and it ran up a decent amount. The nerd token did, and then it crashed already on the other side.
Yeah.
And then
I think in
obviously
one day.
Cosmic Champs, it just got listed, and obviously it has a exponentially high APY that it's saying it's paying out. I will say this, even back when I was using Yieldly more, is I couldn't really and I've seen some people say this as well, but the APY that it said you were supposed to be earning wouldn't actually add up if you did the math.
I used to do it all the time. Most of the time they missed.
Yep.
Yeah. So I am curious, and it's also still very interesting to see that they've still not fixed this way their app tracks the Yieldly price. It still shows the price of the ETH or the ERC and not the ASA, and so it still has Yieldly as 0.006 something or whatever instead of where it's actually valued at. So it is interesting that they're moving forward and like almost like just trying to like pick up from where they left off without fixing that issue. There's still the whole headline thing
Mhm.
that I know a lot of people were talking about with still not getting compensated for whatever was going on there. So what are your all's thoughts? I'm still not using Yieldly. I'm still waiting, but didn't know what you guys were thinking.
I'll just chime in shortly. Like I'm not using Yieldly, and I'm still confused about the why launch because I do know the Cosmic Champs is supposed to launch on Yieldly, but they launched their token on Tiny Man, and they're only doing a staking pool on Yieldly, so it just sounds like a staking pool.
Yeah, the whole thing confuses me.
Confusing.
I still use the app a little bit, but just because I'm staking XCT tokens in that XCT distribution pool. Otherwise, I mean, I honestly log on like probably once every other week to claim those rewards and compound them just because I always forget that they're there.
Yeah,
But I did want to mention just on rewards in general, in case people didn't know, a lot of apps use APY like Yieldly, but PactFi and a couple others use APR, and there is actually a significant difference. And when you compound this APR out and you compound it daily, it turns into a significantly higher APY. I don't know the exact number, but
130, I think, for this number for the
yeah,
52. I believe. Like
yeah,
a
some of them, yeah, some of
1.5.
them are substantial. But yeah, definitely if you're ever curious, check out what the conversion is because even though some of these numbers might seem low because you might not know the exact difference between APR and APY, APR when converted and compounded is a higher APY than shows.
Yeah,
All right, let
definitely.
me
And
ask
that
you
took me. Oh, go ahead, David.
about this Cosmic Champs thing, since we were kind of talking about that before we get to our. I just see now that a minute or 1 hour ago, Borderless Capital tweeted out, "Congrats to our portfolio company at Cosmic Champs for the successful COSG token launch in partnership with Tinyman. Borderless has participated by contributing significant liquidity to COSG pools both in Tinyman and Yielding Finance." What is your all's thoughts? Obviously now that I've been in the whole Algorand ecosystem, I had a certain view on some of the VC guys before. I feel like my view is somewhat changing. Just do you guys feel like they're using their status to, at any point, just almost fun line their pockets? I mean, I know this is a thought with VCs everywhere that they're going to do these things, but like this is a project, just like we kind of discussed, it has nothing out yet. Like there are plenty of people, Alchemon, Fractal Monsters, there are plenty of developers out here who are building things on the Algorand ecosystem for the Algorand community and plugged into the Algorand community. And then you have this other side of it that's just like, hey, we got Borderless on our side, so that means we're legit and you should go invest in us. And hey, look, they're tweeting about us, so that means we're even more legit, so pour all your money into it.
Well, yeah, it certainly does help a project look more official. But as we mentioned in private, you got to take VCs with a grain of salt. They're, of course, out there to make money. And, as we mentioned, it's a numbers game to them. So they might see 50 projects that they think are decent and invest in all of them, knowing that maybe 5% of them are going to actually do well and the other 95% are going to fail.
Right,
So,
and I get that from a VC's mindset of just trying. It's a numbers game and just dump put as much money in as many. It's like Arrington XRP. Like, dude's
Yeah,
not in just Algorand. Dude's in so
every
many different ecosystems, and he's spreading his money so far out that if that he's almost guaranteed to win big. Everywhere
some
almost.
point. Yeah,
But my thought is, does this make you look at Borderless Capital in a negative light when they tweet things like this? Because this has pull, I feel like, in the world we live in. There are people who follow bigger figures like Scaramucci and the Four Bulls and even people within the Algorand Foundation who look at them to give not financial advice, but to speak about projects that are legit and that we should trust. And we've already seen things happen with certain projects that they've put up to light. And for them, yeah, they may have invested 50,000, 100,000. I don't know how much money they actually put into this pool, but to them, it may not be anything, but to someone else, it could be a lot.
yeah, I'll just say, I mean, it doesn't really shift my opinion because I feel like my opinion has always kind of been shifted this direction. So I don't know. Like I said, you really just got to take everything VC money says with a grain of salt for sure.
yeah. Like I would agree with that. It's like the question is this: if I'm putting money into it, why wouldn't I promote it? Right. So it's like they have to, or otherwise, it's like what's the point? And overall, as we always say on here, you got to do your own research. Literally, go check out. That's why we have these founders and stuff hopping on the channel so y'all can hear directly from them and get an understanding of actually what they're planning to do and what they're doing. So that's what we always like, leave questions, leave comments. These people will talk back. Then after you do your research, make a decision.
So let
Yeah,
me let me see this.
sorry, go
Do,
for it.
do you guys think that as regulation comes more into the crypto space, that we'll see less and less of this?
Real quick, with regulation, I think what Algorand is primed for regulation. Being MIT, they're also I forget what's it called, SAFE or the Arab United Emirates and all that. They approve Algorand's blockchain, so they're ready to go for regulation. They're American born, basically. So I think regulation would be great, and regulation is going to attack stable coins, from my research understanding.
Yeah, I think honestly, I don't think stablecoins are going to get hit as hard as people think, primarily just because they help propagate the U.S. dollar's dominance throughout the space. So in a way, it's kind of helping the government.
Yes.
That being said, I don't think it's going to really help because in fact it could actually make that a little bit more prevalent just because you'll have more big time investors that feel okay with investing in the space. Uh, but that being said, I don't think it's as big of an issue as people make it out to seem. I would personally, though, like to see somebody like Borderless Capital, instead of investing in Cosmic Champs, just putting a couple hundred, put like a couple $1 million or whatever, boost up the TVL on some of these apps and just have the,
Yep.
like, I don't know. It's just such an interesting thing that they're spreading their money around all these bizarre projects. And I'm not saying they're not good projects. It's just there could be better uses of the money currently for the Algorand ecosystem. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
And someone says one Forbes article talked about BlackRock partnering with Circle. Yeah, I read that. They are
Yeah.
partnering with
Yeah.
Circle to help make sure that they got basically their USDC cash in vaults locked up so they can prove that they actually have what they say they have, unlike Tether.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully that's all it is. But I don't really trust BlackRock, so it's like it's one of those things.
Yeah, I bet you
You
about
don't trust the company with that holds almost all the world's
all the
assets.
money. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
They're
Algorand has
probably
the
good people.
future being a stable coin platform too, because like yeah, just the fees and all the same reason why we love Algorand's like payments and processing with stable coins would be so easy.
Yep. And this is a good question we have being asked by, I believe, Jake. What happens on PactFi? And this is actually for all of these DeFi platforms right now because they're all getting these rewards. But what happens when the liquidity rewards program concludes? I didn't know it was on the 2nd of June, but that's good information. Thanks for letting me know.
Thanks.
That's a good question. And it's a really wait and see type of environment. I guess the hope is that by then there'll be enough growth on the network that a lot of just the volume in general for the transaction fees will begin to make up for those rewards. With volume being so low, that means there's low transactions, and LPs make money from transaction fees. So the only way to negate that effect is to boost up volume, and hopefully we do that in time.
I think the big worry you have to worry about is if Algorand trades in this range that we're in right now until something like that.
Mm.
And you have to think that's very close to when governance would be ending. I mean, I feel like if we're still sitting around 67 cents, we may end up falling through. I mean, that's just the reality, because if the transactions are going down and and rewards that the Algorand Foundation is kind of pumped into the DeFi area are drying up, I mean,
They're gonna have to pump
why,
more.
fingers crossed, this marketing that they're planning, obviously not just the Times Square thing that's happening tonight, but Stacey Warden tweeted out earlier this month that they're unleashing a lot of marketing, and there's going to be, I would assume, ongoing marketing that's going to continue to bring Algorand into the limelight. And then you have the transactions upgrade, the finality upgrade, state proofs with the Falcon keys, and it being post quantum secure. I mean, there are many things that could start to bring Algorand into a better light. But I still think it comes back to the fact that there's not much money to be made. Like, you can make more money on Ethereum, you can make more money in Bitcoin if you're a whale. Like, that's just how it is. Unless you're the VCs who are, putting liquidity in, getting a COSG at a fraction of what they're about to list on, and it runs, 1,000%. You sell and you take your liquidity, and then you just made a quick buck. I mean, that's obviously a way in which many people are making money in Algorand, and that's by ASAs. But as far as just the holding algo, I mean, the rewards for governance this period are what?
7-6%.
Yeah, 7-8% maybe at the highest. And that's obviously now more people could fall out and it could go up, but that's not much when you think about how much people are making on other chains. And this is one of the questions I was going to ask you guys earlier. What do you guys think about, with governance and us being able to vote as we get closer to 2030 and, there's less algos in supply? Do you guys think that the foundation would propose, or the ex-govs maybe at that point would propose a way in which holders or stakers of algo do make more money in fees and things like that?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that could potentially happen in the vote. But I actually kind of lean in the direction of agreeing with IE here. It's just like I said, it's still a tightrope to walk with. You don't want to centralize the network. But I actually threw out this idea recently. You know, concept scrap governance rewards altogether and use algo to bring back either participation rewards and node operator incentives. And I'm okay with not even having participation rewards, but
Yeah.
node operator incentives is a big deal. And I will say, I don't even know if I'm supposed to say this publicly, but I actually made this right after my conversation with Michael Cotton of Algomint, and this is also something that he wanted me to ask Paul Regal and people of the foundation, like how can we further incentivize node operators? And yeah, he does have a similar idea as well, but I don't want to put words in his mouth. I'm not even sure if I should really be
I
talking
was
about it too much, but
I was watching that. I'll put words in my mouth. I'm like, yes,
well, we
move
spoke
the
we spoke
rewards.
privately about the node
Oh,
operators
more.
afterwards. That's why I was saying, yeah.
Oh, I was like, shit, because I was watching.
Like,
But
now I
yeah,
tapped into your computer. I was listening.
Yeah.
I'm like, I agree with what I did here. Is like, yeah, they got to move the rewards around to like what David said earlier. We need more decentralization because you think about 2,000 is not a lot. I need 100,000, nodes around the world.
It's a lot. I mean, like I said, when I compared every other list, you take
Yeah.
away Ethereum, and technically right now Algorand is in second place.
Second place. It's good,
Okay,
but
behind
we want
Solana.
to be the best.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
number one.
That's what it comes down to.
And I feel like it's also, maybe this EVM compatibility, and once people who are coding and creating on Ethereum start to see how maybe that it is easier. Obviously, I'm not a coder, but they see that it's easier to code and create these DApps on Algorand, especially with the state proofs and some of the other functionalities. I mean, this is also going to make it to where once we have things like Algorical and like a chain link for Algorand, and we can actually do more with the smart contracts, like it's, I just feel like Algorand right now is in just a very pivotal area, but I feel like it's it's primed. Like it
Yeah, I
has
agree.
it has all the developers building the tools needed for it to be successful. It has all the upgrades ready to handle the migration from other chains to come and build and it to grow here, and for it honestly to become that ETH killer that we've heard people like Scaramucci say, and obviously it's been touted if you read articles, but at the same time, it could go really bad if things don't play out the way they need to.
Yeah, from everybody I've spoken to, what the ecosystem needs is being built. So like patience is key. This is really the best time to be accumulating when everybody is so bearish. That's usually a sign that you should probably be buying and not freaking out and selling. But to your earlier point, it kind of lines up with this question that we had earlier in the stream, which is what is the minimum skills needed to get into blockchain development, and especially related to Algorand. I'm sure learning to code is a great skill, but I will say hit up Reach. Go to Reach Lang and try to learn through them. And if you don't know what Reach is, message one of us and I will direct you to Reach or even the CEO of Reach, and certainly put you in the direction to help you learn, because all the information is there. I'm not particularly a technical guy. I'm more of an analysis guy, a numbers guy, economics guy, but I could certainly help point you into the right direction, and I'm sure either of these two fellas could too.
Yeah, I tried. I went over to Reach. I had the epiphany one night. I was like, you know what? It can't be that hard to start learning how to code and learn these things. Like if I just give it a shot, I'll try. I reached out to Chris Swinner. He sent me an article about understanding JavaScript. So this isn't even like, coding on Algorand and Teal and all the stuff that they do, but it's just JavaScript. Man, I had never been so confused in my life reading the first chapter. So I think it does take a certain mind to understand certain topics, but I feel like if you're young enough and you apply yourself, it's definitely something that's doable. And with the world ever evolving towards tech and towards programming, like it's going to be the job that's going to be in most demand in the future.
Yeah.
Coding
That's
and
right.
blockchain security, or not even just blockchain, but just security and of websites and of data and stuff like that. Like that's going to be some of the wealthiest people in the world in 5 to 10 years. And you're going to see a lot of trades, not making nearly as much as people who can offer those type services.
Right now, it's already higher paid than most trades already off the top. So you got cybersecurity is huge, and from my understanding, that is the fastest track to get into developing. And you got front end, you got back end, you got UI design and UX, pretty much. And so you would essentially have to pick one of these ways to get in. That'll be the fastest track. Otherwise, you're going to try to learn everything. And there are about 5 or 6 languages. So like what JT said, I would figure out which one Algorand uses if that's what you want to build on, and then pick UI, front end, back end, cybersecurity, or design. It's like about 5, 6 components.
Yep. Yeah, and Algorand primarily uses Teal, but Reach is able to also deploy their language on Algorand, and from what I hear, it is simpler. I would like to learn how to code. I love numbers. I'm a math guy in general, so I don't think it would be that big of a stretch for me, but it really comes down to the time. I mean, my 2 things that I'd like to do is actually learn 2 languages, one being a spoken language and one being a coding language, but we'll see how that goes.
Nice. I got a similar plan. But yeah, coding's out the window because I'm like, I don't even like typing. Like I could barely get my keys.
Say, I was able to set up a relay node which had some coding, but obviously I had help and watched a couple of different videos, and then also read the developer's tool. So it's definitely
hey, that's how it starts. That's how it starts.
Question for y'all. We talking about Reach. What is up with Humble Swap?
From everything I've read, they are working through a re-audit currently and are waiting for that. And
didn't they write it Reach? That's not a good look.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck? Like you.
Well, to be fair, nothing bad actually did happen, so that's good.
Yeah, like 9 months I've seen them talk about Reach, and then as soon as a Reach project drop, it goes down in like the same week.
Yeah.
Well, I think obviously it was good that it went down, just because it obviously saved people from an exploit and even bigger issue. But I feel like with what Chris is hoping to do at Reach, and just with projects that build on it, is make it, in his words, 100, 1,000 times easier to code and program. Whereas he told me in our interview, I think if you try to code on Solidity, which is the main one for Ethereum, it's thousands of lines of code for certain things. And that's and I don't even know how basic of a smart contract that may be. And just like we saw with Smilecoin, saying that their SDK and their thing is only 10 lines of code, I think that's also what Reach is trying to do, where it takes something that would be so extensive and makes it so simple where you can literally just plug and play and create some of the most complicated things in a much shorter time frame and know that it's secure. But I feel like even with Algorand, like there's the infrastructure and things still have to come up before we're going to see that.
Well, yeah, and to everyone's point, it is a great point that both of you had made, but Reach really is just trying to take more complex coding and bring it down into like 1/10 of the amount of coding needed. That doesn't mean you can't still make a mistake in the coding. They made a mistake in their coding when they launched Humble Swap, but that amount of coding was would have been 10x more what they needed to launch it if they didn't do it through Reach. So they made their workload easier, but they still made a mistake. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know, and mistakes happen, and that's part of the reason audits exist in the space. I hope more auditors exist because one, audits are so expensive that in the space currently that people go and get one audit, and if the auditor says it's good, they go in and say it's good, and we roll with that. But if there's more competition in the space and there are more auditors and the price came down substantially, these DeFi apps could go get 2, 3, 4, 5 different audits without it breaking the bank, and then have more assurance than just having one set of eyes on it. That being said, I think that's growing pains of early innovation.
Yeah, I think so. More audits would be definitely better.
Yep. All right. Well, I feel like that was a great episode. So why don't we wrap it up there?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
All right. I appreciate everyone.
Hopefully by the time we come back together, my node will be all the way caught up to the current block that Algorand's on.
Yeah, keep us updated with that. Cross check what the block is on Algo Explorer, just so you know how far off you are.
Yeah. I also want to know if there's a way to actually check and see my node from another endpoint, I guess would be the word, from my browser history. Can I go search certain nodes and actually see what mine is, where mine? I don't know. There's so much I still have to learn, but I'll have to do a lot of Googling.
Hey, one step at a time. You're getting there.
Yep.
All right, everybody. I appreciate everyone that tuned in and everyone that messaged us in the comments. We'll be sure to see you again in the future.
Yep. See you guys.
Peace, y'all.
Take care.